It was a quiet afternoon by the lakeside where Emma often helped her father, a retired Navy SEAL, with their small fishing business. She loved the serenity of the water, far from the chaos of the city. But today, the calm was shattered when a group of bikers rolled in, loud and unruly. They didn't seem interested in the peaceful scenery. They had their eyes on Emma. At first, she tried to ignore their crude remarks and mocking laughter, but it quickly became clear they weren't going anywhere. Little did they know, her father, a man of discipline and unmatched strength, was just a few steps away, quietly observing. Beneath his calm exterior was someone trained to handle danger without hesitation. As the situation escalated, the bikers remained oblivious to the storm they were about to unleash. What happened next would leave everyone stunned and change the tone of the day forever. Emma's father, Jack, had spent years mastering patience and focus during his time as a Navy SEAL. Now, retired and living a quiet life, he rarely spoke of his past. To the locals, he was just a humble fisherman who valued hard work and family. But Jack's instincts were sharp, and his protective nature was unwavering. From the corner of his eye, he'd been watching the bikers ever since they arrived. Emma tried to stay composed as the group's behavior became bolder, their taunts louder. She had grown up with her father's strength and resilience guiding her, but this was different. She felt cornered. Jack quietly stepped onto the dock, his presence unassuming yet commanding. His weathered hands, once trained for combat, now rested by his sides, ready for anything. The bikers, still oblivious, laughed among themselves. Jack's calm voice cut through the noise, stopping them in their tracks. The leader of the bikers turned, smirking as Jack approached. He didn't see a former Navy SEAL, just an older man with a weathered face and a calm demeanor. "Got a problem, old man," he sneered, his friends laughing behind him. Jack didn't flinch, his eyes steady, his voice even. "You're upsetting my daughter. I'd appreciate it if you left her alone." Emma watched nervously, torn between fear and admiration for her father's unshaken composure. She had seen glimpses of his military precision in the past, but this was different. Jack's calmness wasn't just for show, it was the quiet before a storm. The bikers, however, misread the situation. "We're just having fun," another one chimed in, his tone mocking. "Why don't you mind your fishing nets and leave us be?" Jack didn't react to the insult, but his silence was louder than words. The tension in the air grew thick as Emma's heart raced. She could feel that something was about to happen, something none of them would forget. The bikers were about to find out the hard way that they had underestimated the wrong man. Jack took a step closer, his gaze never leaving the biker who had spoken. The laughter among the group faded slightly as they began to sense that this wasn't going to go the way they expected. "I'm only going to ask you one more time," Jack said, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made Emma shiver. "Leave her alone." The leader of the group scoffed, trying to mask his unease. "What are you gonna do, old man? You're outnumbered." His words were confident, but his tone wavered slightly. Jack tilted his head, studying them as if calculating every possible move. The years of training and instinct kicked in, his body already prepared for whatever might come next. Emma's heart pounded as one of the bikers stepped forward, attempting to intimidate her father. Jack didn't budge. The air seemed to crackle with tension, every second stretching endlessly. The bikers had no idea they were standing on the edge of a storm, and Emma couldn't decide whether to feel afraid or relieved. Something told her they were about to learn exactly who her father was, whether they wanted to or not. Just as the tension hit its peak, the faint sound of another engine broke through the stillness. Emma turned, spotting an old pickup truck rolling down the dirt road toward the dock. It was Mr. Harris, a longtime family friend and a retired sheriff. He often stopped by to chat with Jack and buy fresh fish, but today his timing felt almost too perfect. The sight of his uniform and badge still carried a certain weight, even in retirement. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances as Mr. Harris parked and stepped out. He was older now, but his presence still demanded respect. He took one look at the scene, the bikers, Emma's nervous expression, and Jack's unshaken stance, and immediately knew something wasn't right. "Everything okay here, Jack?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Jack didn't take his eyes off the leader of the bikers. "Not yet," he replied evenly. The bikers, now faced with the arrival of someone who might complicate their plans, shifted uncomfortably. Their earlier bravado wavered, but the leader forced a grin, trying to regain control. "We're just having a friendly chat," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Emma's heart raced as she realized this wasn't just about her anymore. The stakes had risen, and the bikers were starting to realize they weren't in control of the situation. But what they still didn't know was that Jack had faced far worse than a group of loud troublemakers. They were about to push him one step too far. The leader of the bikers sneered, clearly trying to save face in front of his crew. "Look, we don't want trouble," he said, raising his hands mockingly. But Jack could see through him. Years of experience taught him to spot a bluff, and this one was as clear as the calm before a storm. Jack took one slow step forward, his voice steady but commanding. "Trouble isn't something you want with me, but if you're looking for it, you found the right place." The air felt electric, and for a moment, no one moved. The leader scoffed and turned to signal his group to leave, but one of the younger bikers, emboldened by the silence, lunged forward. Big mistake. Jack's movements were lightning fast, a blur of precision and strength. Before the biker could reach him, Jack had him immobilized, his grip firm but controlled. The rest of the bikers froze, their bravado crumbling. Emma stood speechless, her father's calm authority a stark contrast to the chaos. Mr. Harris, standing by, didn't intervene, but instead crossed his arms, letting the scene play out. "Told you to listen to him," he muttered, shaking his head. As Jack released the stunned biker, the group hastily gathered themselves, muttering apologies and retreating to their motorcycles. The leader, now pale and shaken, managed a weak, "We're leaving," before they rolled off, their earlier arrogance left in the dust. Emma exhaled in relief, but before she could speak, Mr. Harris chuckled and looked at Jack. "You never lost your edge, did you?" Jack smiled faintly, his eyes softening as he turned to his daughter. They just needed a reminder to respect what's worth protecting. But as they stood there, Emma noticed something glinting on the dock, a small patch from one of the bikers' jackets, left behind in the scuffle. She picked it up, a cold shiver running down her spine as she realized the emblem wasn't random. It was tied to a larger, more dangerous group, one her father might recognize all too well. The calm wouldn't last for long. Jack took the patch from Emma's hand, his expression darkening for a brief moment as he recognized the symbol. But then he tucked it into his pocket and gave her a reassuring smile. "It's nothing we can't handle," he said calmly, though Emma could see the gears turning in his mind. Mr. Harris patted Jack on the shoulder. "If they come back, you know where to find me. People like that tend to pick the wrong fights." Jack nodded, his focus already shifting to the safety of his daughter and their quiet life by the water. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the lake, Emma finally felt the tension leave her. She knew her father's strength went beyond his Navy SEAL training. It was his unwavering love and instinct to protect that made him fearless. The bikers were gone, and for now, peace had returned. But Jack's watchful eyes stayed on the horizon, ready for whatever came next.